So yeah, I guess we don't really have much of an audience, but we could probably just get into this since it's being recorded. I was thinking we could, since I have a bit of a provocative title, it'd probably be fair to characterize your views of how you think the past, I guess, week has transpired and kind of what the objectives are. In trying to assess what's happened, it seems perhaps more Sal and Jackie having been kind of pushing the envelope more so than yourself. But since kind of you'd put the challenge out there, I guess you got the invite to Spaces. But I'd like to hear your viewpoint.
All right. Yeah. Well, first off, you're right. It's a very provocative title for the chat room. The Crypto Critic Witch Trials American Scream's Quest to Cancel CCC. So I already feel like, I'm walking into a kind of a wolf den here. It would be like me inviting you into, say, a chat room that was like, let's let Cameron Cruz answer for why he was caught with child porn. I assume you will allow, you subscribe to the innocent until proven guilty, although you wouldn't know that from the title of this room.
Sure. Yeah. I think it's safe to say, though, that there have been some accusations planted towards the Crypto Critics Pod. Would you agree with that?
Well, I don't know about accusations, more like realizations. And the funny part is, right, most of what we have said, and let me preface this by saying, I don't speak for Sal, I don't speak for Jackie, I don't speak for anybody other than myself. I can, as a moderator of some of the crypto critical communities, speak about what we do in that role. But again, I am not the controller or the dictator of Buttcoin or any of these other communities. But I can certainly speak to some of this stuff. I can't tell you what Sal's position is. I can't tell you what Jackie's position is, but I can tell you what my impression is of them, which should probably suffice since we are basically talking about our relationship with two other people that apparently are too scared to come into the chat room themselves and interact with us. So we're all going through proxies. So as long as people understand that, we can kind of proceed.
Yeah, well, I think it's good to characterize kind of what happened. So from my perspective, maybe it was about a week ago, and there was some history prior that we can get into as well. But about a week ago, Sal had released the second article,
right,
effectively attacking
the problem with Protos.
Yes, but he was using Cas, Piancey, and Bennett Tomlin, who are hosts of the Crypto Critics Pod and became writers for Protos. He was using them kind of, I'm not sure which way to phrase it, but he was going after Protos through them, and they initially attracted his eye towards going after Protos.
Well, first off, this notion that we went after Protos, all we're doing is asking questions, right? I mean, that's what I'm sure that Cas and Bennett and you, because I understand you do your own kind of investigative stuff too. That's what you do. You research into these entities that you want to know more about, and you ask questions, and you find out information, and you find out stuff that doesn't make sense, and you want to get it clarified. Would I call that an attack? I don't think so. But, this is something that we want to qualify here, right? We're accused of smearing them. We're accused of trying to cancel them. We're accused of attacking them. So I would like to know exactly where that attacking, smearing, can you point to something specific that you could say is an attack? Because I think asking questions like, who is the mysterious co-founder of Protos, that's a question. It's not an attack, but they took it like an attack and just freaked out. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, I think if we look at the sequence of events, when it first crossed my radar, Jackie Sawicki was tweeting repeatedly at Cas Piancey specifically, and I think tagging the Crypto Critics Pod. And there were probably 24 tweets that I saw, all with variations of repeating the same questions, and it came across to me as like a targeted harassment. Like, this article is put out there and is questioning their credibility as critics.
Yeah, I could see how that would be. And I can't speak for Jackie, but I can tell you my impression is I think you're not too far off. I think she was questioning their credibility as critics, as many of us in the crypto critical community have. And we can go into the details of that later, but let's address this initial thing, right? So it started off with, first off, I don't know if people understand who Jackie is, right? Jackie lives in a small town in Texas that has been overrun by a very large crypto mining company that has created a whole bunch of problems and made some deals with the local government that is not in the best interest of the citizens of her county, much less the state of Texas. And she is directly affected by what is going on down there. And it's messing with the quality of her life, the cost of her electricity. So she's very passionate about this. This is not some kind of faraway conceptual thing that she has an opposition to. This is in her backyard, stuff going on that she is fighting, and I respect her passion. Would I do everything the same way she would? Would I respond the same way? Not necessarily, but I will tell you this. I think she's generally right and on the right track, and she has every right to be upset when somebody from far, far away who just attacks some of her efforts. And of course, that's the thing. It's been going back and forth. Jackie's been saying things. They've been saying things. So let's rewind to where it started, okay? She's been in this small Texas town. She's formed this coalition called the Texas Coalition Against Crypto Mining. And she's been trying to get this company that's been in her town out. And they are not making money crypto mining. They're making money brokering electricity back to the citizens of Texas at a higher rate than, so they pay for cheaper electricity than citizens do, and then they get paid to turn their mining rigs off. So this company that she's fighting, they're not even making money in crypto. They're making money pretending crypto is a useful application when the real profit center for them is this sweetheart deal they've got with the state to sell electricity back by turning off their mining rigs. So it's really a sleazy political deal that she's fighting, and I think she has every right to fight that. So that, and then in the general sense, there's the argument of how much electricity Bitcoin mining wastes, and that's a serious issue, right? So she's been fighting that. There was an article that came out of a study about Bitcoin's resource wastage, and in this particular study, they were talking about its water usage, right? Now, I'm not the expert on that. That's Sal and Jackie, but there was an article that made the rounds accusing Bitcoin miners of using tremendous amounts of water, which is used in the process of energy generation, right? BBC picked up the article as well as many other outlets. Protos wrote an article attacking the study. At first, they claimed it wasn't peer-reviewed when it was. They lied about that. And even still in their attack piece, they put the word study in quotes, scare quotes, to kind of like pretend that it's not a legitimate study, but it was a legitimate peer-reviewed scientific study. So Bennett went in and kind of attacked some little minor methodology into the study and used that as a way to try to discredit the whole study wholesale. Jackie took offense to it. Sal took offense to it. Sal wrote an article called Pushing Back Against Protos. He didn't even specifically go after Bennett and Cas. He just went after the company that put this thing out, right? And he cited some very good points. And as far as I know, this may be one of the first times anybody has argued with the crypto critics in a public space, and they did not like it. And instead of engaging and debating, they just blocked everybody, right? And then started talking shit about everybody. And that kind of set things off. And so Sal is like, okay, what's going on? I got to find out a little bit more. So he started researching into who Protos was and who these people were that were paying Cas and Bennett from the crypto critics. Now, before that, myself, Sal, other people, we've been long-term fans of the Crypto Critics podcast. I've always enjoyed them. I've always been a fan. I've been in their Discord for a long, long time. But I didn't realize that they're not as critical of the crypto industry as I am, right? I think blockchain technology really doesn't produce anything useful for society. I think Bitcoin is functionally identical. When Bitcoin is used as an investment, it's functionally identical to that of a Ponzi scheme. And I could prove that. I produced a documentary, feature-length documentary, which, by the way, has just been accepted into the Nice Film Festival in Nice, France, that will be playing in May. So if anybody over there wants to see it, it'll be in the film festival. It's called Blockchain, Innovation, or Illusion. This film has been out now for 2 years. The first year, I just shopped it around to the film festivals, and then I released it publicly prematurely because I thought it was important. I've never made a dime off of any of this, not a dime. I put this video out because it's an important issue. I'm a software engineer, and I wanted to talk about blockchain technology and whether or not it really did do anything useful for society. And I can talk about that as somebody who has experience. I put the thing out. I approached crypto critics and said, hey, I'd love to go on your podcast and talk about my documentary. Bam, they ghosted me, which I thought was really weird. I was in their Discord. I tried to establish a conversation. They would never respond to me. But if, like, a fake Bennett tried to friend request me, I'd say, hey, is this the real Bennett friend requesting me? He would respond to me then and say, no, that's not. So they were getting my messages. They just wouldn't acknowledge that they wanted to have any interest in my documentary. I didn't understand why that was. Now, when Sal starts looking into Protos and he starts to realize that the company they work for is basically a very big crypto boosting company, there's some partners in there that nobody knows. There's definitely conflicts of interest. Their co-founder clearly has material interest in crypto community. While Bennett and Cas are listed on their masthead as not having any crypto investments, the fact that they get paid by a company that does have crypto investments, it muddies the waters, right?
Now you have some crypto investments yourself, don't you?
No, I don't.
Well, on episode 7 of your podcast, you said you had $20,000 of Bitcoin.
No, I
on
didn't.
An old machine.
No, I didn't.
You did.
I said
I can pull that quote for you later.
Yeah,
if
good.
You like.
You could pull that. I would never qualify Bitcoin in terms of actual money without saying that's kind of illusory, right? Here's what I said. I fiddled around with Bitcoin in the early days. There was a website called the Bitcoin Fountain you could go to, right? And you could click on it and it would just give you Bitcoin in the early days. I've been around for a long time. And I probably have some crypto sitting in a file somewhere that I grabbed that I have no intention of ever doing. It wasn't an investment. It was me clicking on a link in a website, right? And so I probably have some of that, but I have zero interest in trying to find that, pull it out, and liquidate it. So I have researched crypto, but I have never looked at it as an investment. I've played around with it. I've messed with the technology. I've installed some of the software, but I have never spent one penny buying any crypto, just to clarify.
Great. I think we should also rewind. There's a few areas of disagreement kind of in your little diatribe there. So first of all, you characterized the saying there was no peer review of the study as a lie. I think that was more of an oversight.
Okay, an oversight. Call it an oversight.
Yeah, so they corrected that. And then
but
from my reading of the article...
You think with two people, head of research and head of investigations, and they're criticizing a study, that would be something they might kind of want to look into, whether it was peer reviewed or not, right?
Well, the article didn't list it, so you'd have to dig a little bit deeper to determine what the peer review is. Like a nice peer-reviewed article is you actually have the peer-reviewed feedback, so you can actually tell, what did those peers actually think about this article.
Okay.
Not all publications do that.
Fair.
And the article itself didn't have any original source data. It was aggregating data that it could find and trying to reverse engineer calculations of what things cost. And I think Bennett's point was that it was measuring things by transaction, and he was pointing out that you don't necessarily have to have. You could have empty blocks. Like there were.
He was
issues
attacking
with the methodology.
Yes, he was attacking a very tiny little segment of the methodology, which I am not qualified to describe and explain. Sal is, and I think Sal's article speaks for itself. And I have I have a link to all of the references and all the articles. If people go to blockchainii.com, at the very top of the page, you'll see a link that's to a dossier of links that I've compiled relative to what I'm going to talk about tonight. And there's links to Sal's study as well as all of the original articles there. So I would encourage people to do their own research and check everything out.
Yep, that's always a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then, this would be a bit of a sidetrack, but laying out that Bitcoin being a Ponzi scheme is, to me, not a helpful characterization. Like, if you want to consider it a greater fool scheme, that's certainly within the realm of possibility, but calling it a Ponzi scheme just serves to make things more difficult because, if you don't have a built-in rate of return, like there's the assertion of a naturally occurring Ponzi scheme that occurs in bubbles, but that's, I think, not a particularly helpful descriptor. And like, it's predicated on the notion that the terminal value of this is zero. So if that's your starting point,
I disagree with that. I don't think there's no predication. I think what determines a Ponzi scheme is the ROI model. Not whether whatever it is you're buying has any inherent value as perceived, just how do people get paid back, right? Now, we can split hairs over whether it's a greater fool scheme, a pyramid scheme, a Ponzi scheme, but the operative issue that makes a Ponzi is a couple of basic elements. And contrary to what people think, and this is another area that I've done tremendous amounts of research on, I have an article called "Is Bitcoin a Ponzi Scheme?" a detailed analysis where I go into all the standard definitions of what a Ponzi scheme is, published by Wikipedia, by the SEC, by Encyclopedia Britannica, by Webster's Dictionary, and we go through one by one, pick out all the elements, and come up with a composite definition of here's what makes a Ponzi a Ponzi. And the main thing is it's a ROI model where you put money into it, and the only money you get back comes from other people that buy into it later, right? And there's also a reasonable amount of deception involved as far as what people expect to get when they're kind of enticed into jumping into the scheme. Now, we can split hairs about it, whether or not it's a greater fool scheme or a Ponzi scheme. I think basically a Ponzi scheme is a type of greater fool scheme, you know. But the point that I'm making is that there's no way that even a majority of people who are in this market will ever make a profit. It's just mathematically impossible. And that's the point.
Yeah, well, I think you're looking at it in a way where everybody is looking to exit at profit.
Right. And of course I am. You know why? Because when you're holding crypto, you hold nothing of value, nothing that you can do anything with. And this is one of those things that bugs me about you guys, right? You use this term unrealized profit, right? You're looking at your portfolio as if you still have that money, and you don't have that money because these markets that you need to convert your crypto into actual money are unregulated, untransparent, and so you have no idea whether they're going to be around today or they're going to be gone tomorrow, like, say, Celsius, right? You know, 1 minute you think you've got money, next minute you don't.
Yes. Now, Celsius
I don't know if you're familiar with Celsius, but I thought I would use that as an example.
Yes, I'm quite familiar. And Celsius itself.
How much did you lose? Scheme. You lost 67,000?
Yeah, it looks like you've done some research.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it's a shame you haven't listened to me because I probably could have saved you that money if you listened to me a little sooner. Because I could have told you it was a Ponzi a long time ago.
You hadn't started your podcast at that point, as far as I'm aware, had you?
I don't know. How long ago did you put that money in? Because my documentary's been out for more than 2 years.
Celsius failed in June of 2022.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a while. And I think you look at Celsius, they were offering a rate of return that was not backed by any actual profits because their investments failed. So at a certain point, you are creating an assertion that you have a Ponzi-ception, where you have this company that's offering this rate of return that they're not sourcing correctly, and then the underlying assets themselves you're asserting are also Ponzi in nature. It just, to me, is not a helpful way of describing it. And
I understand.
I read your article on Ponzi. I mean, you almost strained a muscle trying to come up with why this would meet the definitions, because you're kind of cherry picking. You know, it meets this Webster Dictionary here and Investopedia here, but then you're kind of overlooking the fact that there's no rate of return in the asset itself. So I think the notion,
like I said, the rate of return, the promised rate of return, is not the functional thing that makes a Ponzi a Ponzi.
Well, sure it is. That's what draws investors in.
People buy in thinking they're going to make money, whatever that rate is, whatever I mean, let's face it. I cannot go to a single website in any social media that talks about crypto that doesn't kind of promise that Bitcoin's going to be 100K or 150K or $1 million. Those are all that dynamic that you're talking about, that promise of return. Every crypto community snow jobs everybody, telling everybody, just wait, it's going to be 100K, it's going to be 150K, it's going to be $1 million. So there it is. There's your phony ass promise of return.
That's not a universal thing that everybody is bought into.
See, now you're moving the goalpost. Now it has to be everybody has to buy into it.
You set the goalposts up where they shouldn't be. I'm going to give you my experience. You are universally, like, you've called everybody who has an opinion different from your own as a crypto bro.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
You have in your past episodes that I've listened to. And
I encourage people to listen to those episodes and see whether or not he's making a true statement there.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Take some Ambien before. Now,
if you want to take it to this lower level, I can match you, or I can be civil. I'm just saying, however you want to do it.
I've been very civil.
By the way, let me preface all of this with, I don't even know why you're here. I don't know who you are. Me and you have never even had any interaction. But you have, like an attack dog, just been slobbering all over me on social media, pretending that I have done some horrible thing. I mean, do you get paid by Cas and Bennett too? And where are they? Why are those guys such cowards that they can't face me personally? What is the deal there? Why have they sent some kind of proxy to talk with me about how their fucking feelings are hurt?
It didn't take long to unmask you. Okay. So
no, I've never had a mask on at all. I'm tired of all that bullshit, dude. I'm here. I've been here. I'm not the one that got blocked. I'm not the one who everybody is calling names saying it's a witch hunt. I put myself out there. I'm 100% consistent.
Okay. Well, Jackie's blocked me, and so is Amy's co-writer, David. So blocks go both ways. I have not blocked anybody.
Okay.
Now, if we were to look at some of the things that have been said, like,
okay,
I think, well, just in general, to talk about my position in relation to this, I'm a viewer of the Crypto Critics pod. I appreciate the work that they've done. I think that they are honest people that are just putting out their honest viewpoint. Okay. And when I saw them getting attacked,
hold on. How were they attacked? How did I attack them?
Well, you're saying that I have attacked you. I think it's a similar level here.
Well,
okay, if we're going to use that terminology,
did I compare them to, like, witches at Salem?
You called Cas a little bitch. You said he didn't have any balls.
After he called me fuckface. He called me fuckface. He called me fuckface first.
Did he?
Mm-hmm. That was our very first interaction, right? And I've got a link to that tweet. If you go to the Blockchain II and you click on the link at the top.
You were insulting him immediately after that, right? Because he was talking about Forbes contributor. And you said something about the head of investigation approach.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty clear insult.
Yeah. Right? Let's share that for everybody else, right? So what happened was, and this is after they ghosted us and they wouldn't respond to us. We said, hey, what is going on? Why are you claiming Tether is backed and all this? It doesn't make any sense. And I wanted to establish a dialogue and they wouldn't respond. And then he posts this thing where he says, anybody who lists himself as a Forbes contributor is like a big red flag or something like that. So he's basically working for one media company, shitting on another media company as being uncredible, which he's perfectly okay to do. And I just commented, or head of investigations for a crypto shilling website like Protos. That's what I commented, which was snarky. I admit it was snarky.
And that's his title, is it not?
Yes, it is his title, and I called him out on it. I thought because Protos is just as much of a crypto shill as Bloomberg, probably more, because Bloomberg at least has other legitimate stuff, whereas Protos, all they do all day is hype crypto. Now they have critical stuff too, but that's what they do, right? So I was just pointing it out. Can you cite
some examples of what they've shilled? Because I'm not familiar with it.
They cover news of interest in the crypto industry. And so they basically put out all kinds of stuff. Their main objective is to pander to the industry. Now, I would argue, are they going to do an article about my documentary about how blockchain is complete crap and I can prove it? No. They'll cover individual things. When these dumpster fires are already smoldering, they'll be happy to cover those. But they're not going to talk about anybody who, they're not going to do anything proactive. I'm trying to stop people from getting scammed in the future. I'm not trying to help people, get the money they lost after they foolishly got into a Ponzi scheme. So we're in different spaces. And also, you're a crypto guy. You believe in crypto. You're totally into it, right? So it's funny that you are defending the crypto critics. Now, I just think that's kind of odd.
Look, I'm a defender of free speech, and the fact is
nobody is censoring you.
Your co-host is looking to remove them from the landscape. And he said as much on the podcast that you host together. And that's unambiguous.
Sal wants to remove them from the landscape, huh?
He does. That's what he said. Sitting, I'm not sure if you're sitting physically next to each other. I'm guessing you're dialing in remotely.
Yeah, no. We're actually in two different countries. You know.
Yeah, well, he's Canadian, is he not?
Right. Yeah. And
yes. Let me just read a quote from the episode 24. At 1 hour and 6 minutes in, Sal says, "If your goal is to get rid of the crypto industry, to make it so that Bitcoin and these speculative digital tokens aren't a thing, you have to ask yourself, how are we ever going to arrive at the right conclusions or be able to recommend the right policies if there are people inside of the critical community who are advancing views that are pro-Bitcoin?"
Okay, that's an interesting quote. I wouldn't immediately say that. Yeah, I wouldn't, and I would generally say that's a good question to ask, right? But I wouldn't immediately assume that means let's destroy all the crypto critics. But I think he's recognizing what I would also acknowledge, which is it's really hard to advance a narrative that we've been trying to advance, which is that there's no redeeming value to blockchain or Bitcoin, period. And I can prove it. And we probably don't have time to go into those details. But if you want to do another podcast later where we talk about it, we can. But there's a legitimate argument there. But when you have people like Bennett and Cas who carry water for the industry, who say, who push back against articles that are criticizing Bitcoin's resource wastage, when in the larger picture, that's an indefensible position. Bitcoin does waste tremendous amounts of resources and accomplishes nothing. The proof of work model is the stupidest thing that was ever conceived. Just wasting energy to prove that you're not a bad actor is really just, from a design standpoint, just profoundly stupid. So, I think anybody who pretends that's not an issue is impeding progress in terms of making the world a better place. And Sal, that's basically what Sal was saying. Now, do I want them to lose their jobs? No, I don't. I'm not that mean and vindictive. Although I will say, Cas tried to reach out to a Twitter handle user named Buttcoin, thinking that guy was associated with the Buttcoin subreddit, trying to get me canceled. He has gone out of his way to try to cancel me. I have done nothing of the sort. I have not gone after Protos and said, hey, one of your writers is acting crazy and calling everybody names. I haven't done that. I have basically just stated my case, and that's it.
How many people have you banned from Buttcoin in the last week or so?
Geez, I can't remember. But remember, we are a critical, crypto critical community, and we have rules that say you can't just barf out the same 27 crypto talking points that we've heard over and over and over. If you're not there to argue in good faith, you're out of there. It's the only way we can keep our community, the signal to noise ratio, acceptable. I mean, you look at the Bitcoin subreddit has 6 million users. Now, I don't believe there's 6 million distinct people, but we only have about 170,000. So we are a minority, and they are this massive army of people that constantly brigade our community. So yeah, we are very aggressive in trying to stop them when they come over and try to troll us. So I'm not going to apologize for that. If you come in and you say the same stupid stuff we've heard 1,000 times and debunked already, we're going to ban you.
It doesn't seem like a very productive subreddit to be involved in personally. But
well, of course, because you're a pro crypto guy. You're not going to like anybody criticizing your industry, of course. But if I go into I've been banned from Buttcoin. I've been banned from all of the major crypto. If I even hint that I'm critical, I'm gone. At least we allow them to come in and disagree with us. All we ask is that don't hide behind talking points that we've already debunked. We don't ban people just because we disagree. We ban people because they keep saying you don't understand, or have fun staying poor, or Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation, or all of that kind of crap that we've already debunked before.
Well, you seem to have convinced yourself that you've debunked all these matters, but I
seem to have convinced Bennett and Cas too, because they will not give me an audience. If they're so right and I'm so wrong, you think they would have the balls to face me. You think they would have the balls to cover my documentary. If my documentary is not correct, then why don't they do a show on it and tell me what is factually wrong? That documentary's been out 2 years. There is not a single significant thing in that documentary that has been called as being inaccurate. I talk about what blockchain is, how it works. I talk about all of the different claims about whether blockchain can verify authenticity, whether crypto can be seized, whether crypto is truly decentralized. And I go one by one about Bitcoin, Ethereum, how it all works, and why these claims are false. And nobody has ever proven it wrong. And so what this has done is it's drawn a line in the sand, right? There's people that are critical of certain crypto companies, but like crypto in general. That's that whole, that's a shit coin, but my shit coin is the real thing. We are on the other side of a line, which is like, all you guys are shit coins, and we can prove it. But nobody wants to have that dialogue without just hiding behind the same 27 talking points we've heard over and over.
Now, so the thing is, like, there's this concept of everybody having the ability to judge for themselves what they value.
By all means, absolutely.
Yes. So if somebody prefers to store their wealth in something like Bitcoin.
Absolutely. It's their choice.
Yeah. So would you agree that if everybody, without expectation of any kind of, appreciation beyond inflation, if everybody in the market was going to just hold their Bitcoin as a store of their wealth, would you agree that, notwithstanding the technical issues that you could point out with proof of work being inefficient, you say wasteful, inefficient could be another terminology, would you agree that that could be useful in its form as described?
I don't know about useful, but I respect anybody's right to buy and hold whatever they want, whether it's Beanie Babies, whether it's Bitcoin, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Rocket. You can put your money into whatever you want, and you can believe that it's going to be the next big thing. That's totally your choice. And I respect it, and I would never tell people, hey, don't buy Rocket. Don't stake your shit over at Celsius.
What?
Right? If that's what you want to do.
Tell people that. I mean, there's certain things that, like, people of sound mind can agree that,
but here's
are not.
Here's where you run afoul of me, right? If you tell people, if you make claims that aren't really backed with evidence, that's like if you say, Bitcoin is the best performing asset of the decade, or you say Bitcoin is hard money and it can't be confiscated and it's totally, it gives freedom to the people. Or you say specific stuff like blockchain is great for being able to verify the authenticity of something. If you make a material claim, we can actually test that claim and find out whether it's true or false. And
I think you're in the documentary.
That's what I take offense to, when you make claims that are not true.
Yeah, probably your strongest segment was pointing out holes in the kind of chain of custody blockchain usage and how it doesn't really make sense. And like having. And the documentary, you pack a lot of content in there. You can see why John Reed Stark was a fan. But again, there are reasons that people like the idea that something like Bitcoin brings. And in terms of, like, I think your challenge, you always throw out that what does blockchain add? I think you come from like a system design background.
Yeah. And
for your clients, there'd be no reason to use blockchain for almost any use case, because blockchain is inherently, or a network like Bitcoin or other, L1 Ethereum kind of proof of stake networks, they're effectively imposing limitations on what you can do.
Well, you're a computer programmer, right? Aren't you a software engineer? Okay.
Yeah.
So surely you must see what I see, which is blockchain is basically a database, and it's a ledger. It keeps track of stuff, right? And so you want a ledger to be fast, you want it to be scalable, and you want it to be efficient to run, right? And if I had a client that wanted me to set up a database of financial transactions, blockchain would not meet any of those requirements. Now, when I talk to a crypto person about this, they'll say, yeah, but blockchain is decentralized. But just because you decentralize something doesn't mean it necessarily offers any advantage to people. And that's the problem that I enumerate in my documentary, right? Is that by decentralizing this database, you introduce a whole bunch of additional problems that traditional databases don't have to deal with, which is why you need those L2 solutions, which don't work either. And the whole idea of proof of work, you have all of these these people just wasting tremendous amounts of energy to prove they're not bad actors. And it still doesn't solve the problem of double spending. It just makes it more expensive. It just means you have to spend a lot more money. You have to have a lot more hash power in order to manipulate the blockchain. So it doesn't necessarily solve the problem. And I like solving problems, not just pushing them down the road. So that's why I take offense with blockchain.
Yeah. Well, I think in terms of what drew me into it, because I had only really experimented with it prior to the pandemic. And then it was more like the having time to sit down in a kind of in my home environment with offices being closed and look at, the quantitative easing and kind of lack of faith in the way the dollar is being managed, to take a look. And the crypto industry had crashed pretty hard.
Okay.
So one of the reasons that forestalled my getting involved is how can you value these assets? And that's always been a challenge, right? Because there's no cash flows. There's nothing other than
right
these tokens.
Why
right?
should
so
you value the assets?
Exactly. Yeah. And it comes down to, it's a very interesting asset class where it's effectively reflexive. It reflects the people that are acquiring it and holding it. So to the extent that you have people that are looking to all get rich, it's a terrifying asset class to be involved in, because your fate is tied to the people that are holding it.
Well, what actually is a crypto token? Is it? My impression is it's like a conceptual manifestation of people's frustration and cynicism with traditional society. Not very material, not very rational, but everybody's just pissed off that they aren't where they want to be socially and economically. And they blame the government. You mentioned quantitative easing and inflation. Those are very, very complicated problems. They're not. It's not like the solution to them is to just have Bitcoin. Even if Bitcoin filled that void that you guys wanted to fill, it wouldn't really solve those problems. The crypto people haven't figured out how to spur economic growth with a deflationary currency. That's a huge problem. It's like they haven't thought 10 minutes ahead of what would happen if they actually got what they asked for, right? Because economic growth is based on quantitative easing. It's based on lending people money that they don't have. And if Bitcoin was the money everybody used, right, then it was deflationary, then there would be no incentive for people to lend it out, because if they hoard it, it increases in value. So that would stagnate the entire economy. Nobody would be able to buy cars. Nobody would be able to take out student loans, because the cost of lending would be prohibitively high. So it seems like it would just amplify all the existing problems we have.
That's a school of thought. And I heard you and Sal discussing that in one of your podcasts. But to counter that, I would say I prefer the notion that you would have a place to park your assets where it's not invested, so to speak, but it's in this kind of neutral territory where you'd be able to park it. And then if you can wait until you find something that has an attractive rate of return. One of the issues with the low interest rates is encouraged people to, you had high inflation, low interest rates. You needed to find a place to park your money. And that's why Celsius was so successful in attracting victims, because they were, it was a fraudulent rate of return. They were offering a rate of return where you could, ride out the effects of inflation. Right. And it's something where, they preyed on a lot of people. And I think let
me just say, man, I feel for you. I would be really, really upset if I lost a lot of money in something like that too. And I don't know how much money you have, but that's a lot of money. That would be a lot of money to me too, and I'm sorry this happened to you. And I wish that I could fix that for you. I wish that I could help all these other people, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. To many of us, as soon as Alex Mashinsky started saying, straw manning banks as being the horrible things they are in society and how he was going to be better, my bullshit detector went off. It was flashing like a fucking siren. Who is this guy? Why is he qualified to build a better bank? I didn't see that from day one. And maybe everybody's so frustrated that they're blinded by that and just want to cling to it. I'm just saying, let's be a little bit more rational. If somebody makes some kind of a promise that seems so dramatically different than what everybody else is getting, there's a good chance it's probably not true, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say from my perspective, I didn't follow any of his AMAs, but I had previously done a lot of peer-to-peer lending in traditional finance, and those businesses had shut them off to individual investors. They basically only have it available to institutions. So there's things like Lending Club. There was something called Prosper, and then there's a new one called Upstart. And they pretty much either closed or limited their investments to institutional investors. And they would, charge people looking to take out loans, and then you could sign up as an individual investor, and you could chip in, say, $50 towards the loan. So these things would default, but you would only take a small hit to your portfolio. And the rate of return was actually really nice. Like you could get 7-8%, depending on how selective you were with which loans you wanted to take on. So this seemed like a crypto version of that. And
yeah, and I understand how that seems really appealing, but the operative thing is, right, none of these entities in the crypto industry are in any way regulated like traditional financial institutions. They don't have any oversight. Many of them are headquartered in shady third world countries or weird beach places where they don't have any real laws protecting consumers and stuff like that. And there's no transparency, there's no oversight. But they're compared to banks and brokerage houses, which have tremendous amounts of transparency and oversight, and they're independently audited. So I think part of what the problem was that a lot of people in the crypto field just assumed all these entities were just like traditional finance things, and they weren't, right? And this is the thing John Reed Stark harps on, which is he's right about. Stop saying that the crypto industry has any transparency or it has any regulatory oversight. It doesn't, right? So that's the critical flaw there. If somebody, and this is my beef with Tether, and this is one of the things that set off our conflict with the crypto critics, right, is that Tether has never been formally audited. And Cas and Bennett went on their previous podcast and said they believe Tether is fully backed. And
well,
I wouldn't.
We need to go into that in a bit more detail.
Well, they said it twice. They said fully backed. People can go back. I'll have a link to the transcripts and they can see it. Now, they also talked about how shady Tether was and how in the past they may not have been backed and blah, blah, blah. But the point is, in this industry, in the financial industry, there's a standard. There's an industry standard way of telling whether somebody is full of shit or not. It's called an independent formal audit. It's if you fell out of a tree, right, and your arm hurt, okay, and we wanted to know whether or not you broke your arm, there's an industry standard way to find that out. You get an X-ray. Everybody pretty much acknowledges that. That's the way to tell definitively, right? Well, in the financial industry, including crypto, a fully formal independent audit is a way to tell whether somebody is telling the truth about their assets and their liabilities. Tether has never performed an independent audit. They've been putting out these attestations, which are just a joke. They've hired some company that will read a document they draft and say, "Yep, this is what they said." That is completely inconclusive. And even if part of what they said was true, like they had X amount of money in the bank, the attestation doesn't say where that money came from and whether it's even theirs. It just says, hey, at this point they had some T-bills here. And this is the problem. Every time one of these crypto companies collapses, when we get a chance to look behind the hood, we see them all colluding, all sending money back and forth, kiting things. And there's no reason to believe that Bitfinex and Tether aren't doing the same thing. And I believe in Occam's razor. The simplest solution or explanation is the most likely, right? If they won't get an audit, it's because they're full of shit. And so and this is like investigative journalism 101, right? I know that if you work for a big company, you can't necessarily make accusations because you don't want to get sued. But I think it's a pretty safe assumption to say there is absolutely no reason to believe Tether is telling the truth, because if they were, they'd submit to a formal audit. So anybody who says, I believe they're telling the truth, the technical term I would use is they're full of shit.
Yeah, well, I think if you listen back to that podcast, Bennett was skeptical.
Of course he was. He was all over the place. It's like they got a phone call that said, "Don't say Tether is not backed," from their overlords, whoever they may be.
Yeah. Well, Bennett did put out articles in the Tether papers, and
right. He's talked shit about them before, which is even more confusing. That he would say, "I believe they're fully backed." It doesn't make any sense unless the bat phone rang, right, and somebody called and said, "Hey, don't say that." He contradicted himself all over the place in that episode. It was really confusing, and I wanted to know why. Sal looked into it, and we kind of figured out why, because he's getting paid by a bunch of crypto people.
Well, I don't agree with that characterization. I think that
so they're not crypto people. So Peter Ruzdev is not like a crypto guy. He put out 500 something episodes about crypto that he has wiped off the internet that nobody's been able to see. Who bought Coin PM, his previous business? Where'd that go? Who is this mysterious co-founder of Protos? Why don't you guys care? Why don't you guys care who the benefactor is of those guys? Isn't that important? If say there was a secret,
directing the inquiries to
them, right? I should be
not Bennett and Cas.
Well, Bennett and Cas are the ones that put that crap out, so you'd assume they would know what they're talking about. I want some answers. Should we go after Peter? Should we bring Peter in? Bring Peter in. We'll talk to him.
I don't have a direct line to him, but I think it would be worthwhile posing the questions to the person that they're pertinent to, rather than picking out two of
so you're saying that basically
who have a competing podcast to yours.
All right, thank you for clarifying that. So this is not Bennett and Cass's issue. This is Ruzdev. Ruzdev ordered them to say that. So I shouldn't take offense with what they said. I should go to their boss, is what you're saying.
Well, that's a pretty bold accusation.
Well, you want me to talk to Ruzdev instead of them. So
I'm suggesting that you don't smear
who made Bennett and Cas
people.
Who made Bennett and Cas believe Tether is fully backed? That is a fact. They said it in their podcast. All right.
Yeah. So who has it occurred to you that they actually do believe what they're saying?
I have no idea. That's why I wanted to ask him. Why would you say that? But of course they ghosted us.
Shouldn't that be your theory rather than Ruzdev put them up to it?
That they believe it?
Occam's razor? That they believe what they're saying because they're honest people?
Honest people don't hide. Honest people don't block everybody and then talk crap about them on social media and pretend and act like, they're not blocking people. So I don't know. From day one, I've tried to talk with them. They don't want to talk. Why is that?
Well, it could be partly because Cas was getting married and he was getting trolled on Twitter nonstop. That might have something to do with it.
Cas is the one that took time out of his whatever wedding stuff to call people cunts, pieces of shit, fuckface. Again, go to blockchainii.com, and at the top of that page, you'll see a link, and I have screenshots of all of the Twitter things that Cas said, the horrible things. He called Jackie Sawicki a piece of shit because she's a passionate activist that wants to fix her community from being taken over by some people that are driving up the cost of power. She's a piece of shit because of that, because she cares about her community. Thank you, Cas. That's really nice of you.
Well, I wouldn't use that terminology, but her tactics, I can see why they would lead somebody to lose their temper, put it that way. She's somebody who's not in command of the facts. She can just regurgitate what she reads.
See, you're making accusations without any evidence of that.
I can show you. She challenged me to a debate, and she basically ran away with her tail between her legs.
All right, well,
20 minutes.
We'll see. I mean, that's between you and her. I can't. Again, I can't speak for her. I respect her passion. I do believe in her cause. But I'm sure there's people that disagree with my approach and my tone of voice and the way in which I form my words, and I can't please everybody. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm wondering to what degree, like you've spoken before about how you believe what you've referred to as crypto people or crypto bros lack empathy, and the critical community has empathy. So I wonder if you could expand upon that, because
absolutely,
I have to feel somewhat the opposite based upon my interactions with you.
Well, I'm saying stuff you don't like to hear, so I'm the bad guy. And I guess
you can say whatever you'd like. It's just
I'm aware of that, and I am.
When you try to like basically cast aspersions about somebody, to me that is out of bounds. And you pointed out
what
things
aspersion have I made that's not true?
You said that Bennett
that Cas called people pieces of shit. That's
you
true.
called him Cas Pansy. You said that he had no balls.
I did do that. Yes.
You said plenty of nasty things yourself.
All right.
So don't pretend like like
All right.
you've
Okay.
taken the high road here.
Let me address that. All right. I apologize. I have not examined what's between Cass's legs. I do not know whether or not he has testicles. So that was out of line on my part. I shouldn't have said he has no balls because I really don't know. I meant it figuratively because he blocked me and then he proceeded to talk crap about me. It was a figure of speech. It wasn't a clinical statement. So for that, you're right. I am totally guilty. And I'll try to not do that in the future.
Your empathy is really radiating.
Yeah, let's talk about this empathy thing, right? So, the idea behind empathy, right, is that you look at things from everybody's perspective and not just your own. That's the concept
something
of
that
empathy.
you're incapable of. You consider yourself to be correct. You consider yourself to be at the top of the slope on Dunning-Kruger.
No.
And nobody else,
No.
everybody else is behind if they have a different viewpoint.
No. I am open to having my mind changed, and I routinely. I engage people every day that disagree with me. If you go into the Buttcoin subreddit and look at my post history, American Scream, you'll see that I'm engaging with people constantly. And I try to argue in good faith, but when they start spewing the same stuff and then they refuse to acknowledge their claims are wrong, there's nowhere else to go, right? I have one simple question that I'll ask anybody in the crypto community, and you can change my mind. If you can show me one specific thing that blockchain is uniquely good at that is not criminal, okay? I've been involved in this since the very beginning, since crypto came out. I'm very familiar with the technology. I did a whole documentary. Nobody has ever said I was wrong about anything in that documentary. It's not that I think that I'm holier than thou and I'm unwilling to admit that I'm wrong. Absolutely. But I'm just tired of people saying that I'm a hater when I keep asking the same question. We're 15 years into this. How long do we have to wait before somebody produces something that blockchain really is great at? You know, all of these Web3 apps, they're all crappy. They're all crappy copies of Web2 apps with tokens added. You know, every single thing. That's why everybody's embracing AI now, because blockchain itself can't do anything. So they're trying to glom onto every new technology. They compare blockchain to the internet as if the internet was anything like blockchain. Because when the internet first came out, you could answer in 2 seconds, what does the internet do better than what we had before? Now we're 15 years into blockchain. Still, I don't get an answer to that question. So am I a little bit jaded because of that? Yeah. I'm still waiting for somebody to answer that basic question.
Yeah. Well, I think the most obvious
Can you answer it?
is, sure, the most obvious would be it allows you to take custody of something of value without an intermediary.
Okay.
That is the core use case of Bitcoin.
That's a vague abstraction. When you
Yes.
say
Well, I think
it's incapable of being qualified and tested, what does that mean? Take possession of something without... See, this is the problem. If you ask me what's
so difficult about that?
Look,
it's pretty simple.
Ask me.
Pretty simple assertion.
Ask me what's so great about a microwave. Ask me what's so great about the internet. I will not say it allows people to interact without third party. I won't give you some vague abstraction. I'll say.
So when somebody gives you an answer, you say it doesn't qualify. So
no.
That's why you can't. It's like complete straw man. Like when somebody answers your question, you're like, oh no, that's not good.
That's not an answer. It's a vague abstraction. You know.
Yes. Well, just for example, I was able to...
Give me a specific example.
Sure. There have been some depositors at Celsius that have been deeply affected by losing their assets. And we've been conducting some fundraisers, and we've set up a wallet address that people have been able to send to. Mm-hmm. And this is not going through anything other than the Bitcoin network. Right? So you have direct control without having to go through an institution. And that is something that some people value, including myself.
I don't disagree that some people value that. Some people value Pokemon cards, and some people value Dutch tulips. I can't deny that to some people it is. But objectively, is that method of donation the most efficient method? I would argue there's some evidence that we can prove it is not. It doesn't necessarily. PayPal is, if you accepted donations via PayPal, you'd have a larger market to get it to solicit donations from, with people that would have less steps and hoops to jump through. You know what you're doing. You're pandering to people in the crypto market, so it's going to be convenient for you. That's fine. But if you're trying to convince the rest of the world that your system is an improvement over what they're doing, you have not made that argument convincingly.
Okay.
And that's my question. Why should somebody who isn't already into crypto care? Why do they have to install wallet software? Why do they have to generate a private public key pair? Why do they have to deal with some kind of exchange to convert fiat into the crypto? Then why do they have to worry about which network they're using and which smart contracts and you know, it's, you all know how complicated it can be trying to just move crypto from one point to another. It's not like PayPal where you type in somebody's email address, hit send, and it's gone, and they get actual money on the other side, you know? I mean, all of these donations for people in crypto, they still have to convert it into something because humanitarian people are not taking crypto natively to give bandages and water. They have to deconvert it, and it introduces all the same problems you guys claim you're bypassing.
Not in this case. We had our victim with their own wallet, and we just sent it there, and they were free to do with it what they please. It's very simple.
Yeah. So it's great for panhandling among the crypto community. I will give you that.
Great. So we agree.
Yeah. In that context, it's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if that applies to most people in the real world.
So I don't live in the real world.
Well, you do live in the real world, but you also live in some other worlds too, and that's cool. Everybody can have their own little worlds. I have little worlds too that I live in, and I'm not faulting you for that. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the best effects of this technology is encouraging people to learn more about both taking responsibility and learning all the different elements of. I mean, it is a very complicated technology, as you'll attest to. You put together a 90-minute documentary explaining how it works.
And I agree with you on this point. It definitely teaches people quite a lot. They're learning all about the trials and tribulations of wildcat banking and how deflationary monetary systems wrecked the economy, one crypto crash at a time.
See, if we go back to the deflationary economics, like that, I think is an assertion that's not been proven in the fullness of time. This inflationary system has resulted in many collapses, largely because money's been allocated to industries that it should not be. And if people were able to
these collapses that shall remain nameless, right? I mean, again, when you make these vague things, you know.
We could talk to 2008 as the most salient one because that inspired Bitcoin, right? So you have the subprime mortgage market.
Yes.
People packaging these things up and selling them back off to.
I'm very familiar with this. I'm loving this topic. Let's get into it. What caused the 2008 recession? I've written a lot on this, and I agree with you that what caused it was some banks that were out of control that did very irresponsible things with their securities. But it can be traced back to a very, very specific piece of legislation that was inserted into the Financial Services Modernization Act of 2000 called the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Bill, right? So when we had the original crash in the 1930s, there was a law passed. I'm trying to remember what it was. The Glass-Steagall was passed, and it restricted banks from engaging in highly speculative activity, and that because that's what kind of caused the crash of the bank. So it was regulation that made the economy stable. And then in 2000, 3 Republicans, Gramm, Leach, and Bliley, injected this piece of deregulatory legislation into this larger omnibus act. Clinton was a lame duck. There was a bunch of stuff in the bill. He signed it into law. He shouldn't have. He admitted he shouldn't have signed it into law, but it passed, and it took the cuffs off of the banks, and it allowed them to get into some highly speculative markets that they shouldn't have, where they created these default credit swaps, right? They went around and they bought up all these mortgages that they could get, and then they put them into these securities, like throwing them into a blender so that nobody could perform due diligence on these assets, right? And then they started selling them, and it kind of turned into like a kind of a Ponzi scheme where the banks were flipping these things. And of course, when you've got local banks that sell their paper to the big banks, they're free to make more loans. So it drove this big boom in housing that eventually imploded when there started to be a bunch of bad loans. They started to default, and the whole thing collapsed. Which, by the way, when the government bailed out some banks, let some of them fail, and the government got paid back plus interest because of that. It was a big mistake that the government did, and they shouldn't have done it. Mm-hmm. But I don't see how Bitcoin would fix that.
So the way in which, and I don't know if Bitcoin would be the solution, but the part about it that interests me particularly is if you have individuals that are able to have control over, if we consider Bitcoin money, if they have control over their money, then it's not in a bank. And then, because if you, like the act of depositing at a bank, they owe you, it's basically just an IOU, right? So they have fractional reserve, or now it's almost zero reserve, depending on where you go.
They're also highly regulated, right? When you put your money into the bank, it's guaranteed, and you.
Sure.
I don't think any. Yeah, I don't think even beyond 250,000. I don't think any personal depositors have lost money in a bank in more than 100 years. It's almost unheard of for somebody to lose their principal deposits because a bank fails.
Yep. Well, I think that part they've taken care of consumers because, you need to avoid bank runs, right? But in terms of the effect, it inflates the money supply because they go and recirculate it around. And that's something, to me, the best economic decisions are made when individuals themselves can dictate where best their money should be allocated. And we're not involving the common man.
You think the common man is smarter than professionals in that respect?
I do, actually.
I don't know.
I think
about
the
that.
educated common man can decide.
Common man can't even agree on whether vaccinations are legitimate. Well, I don't know if I would trust them with money, with any kind of significant money, but it's their money. They can do what they want with it. Yeah.
But they can't do what they want when their money is held at a bank and the bank decides what to do with it.
So you're saying that if I put money in a bank account, I should be able to tell the bank what they do with those assets in reserve?
Well, I'm saying that if you actually hold on to the money, then they can't. So de facto, you're changing the balance of power more towards the citizen, which I support.
I don't know if I would see it that way. I mean, if you put, say $67,000 into a bank account, the bank can do, they can use that as part of their basis for their fractional reserve lending. But you can also take your money out anytime you want. It's safe. It's guaranteed. It's not going anywhere. If you take your money and you put it into Bitcoin or Dogecoin or whatever, maybe you can get it out. Maybe you can't. I would argue that it is absolutely not a certainty that if you decide you want to cash out your Doge or your Bitcoin or your Ethereum tomorrow, that you 100% can do that. It's much more certain that if your money is in a FDIC insured account, you will be able to. And I think that's an important distinction that people need to understand. Now, if you're willing to take the risk to self-custody, that's your problem. But if you do that and you lose, best perhaps to accept it. Don't create your own YouTube channel where you complain 24/7 that your self-custody failed or whatever.
Okay, well, I feel like there's a little bit of shade you're throwing my way.
All right, I'm sorry. I was having fun with you. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I appreciate you engaging me, and I'll try to be nice. I'm sorry. No, I'm a snarky guy. That's kind of my archetype. I come from a subreddit where that's what we do. We are compassionate and we do feel for these people, but sometimes they say such stupid things that are so. They're enough to just make you lose faith in humanity. People thinking that Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million or that some weird shitcoin is going to be the next big thing. That we just shake our heads. We have to kind of approach it with some degree of levity just to be able to deal with it. It's nothing personal. We all really want everybody to kind of do well. It's just sometimes you got to laugh about it. You got to make fun of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that's fair. And I think just to tie this back in, like my reading of Cas's outburst, which I think you and Jackie took personally, was he was just reacting emotionally. I mean, obviously, that language is not something that you would use in a corporate environment. But one of the things I think is cool about Cas, he was able to create this career for himself that kind of defies those corporate norms. And the fact that he was able to get this job and put out what I consider to be pretty good work. Like, I think that's awesome. So when I saw him getting attacked, like, to me, that's what provoked me to get involved. And it wasn't like they put me up to it. It's just, I joined crypto Twitter after the Celsius collapse. And I have had my share of people attacking me. And it's not fun when you're getting dogpiled. And I realized that you weren't doing the majority of that, but I wanted to try to put my hand up and stop it. And to me, like,
and I respect
almost,
that. I really
yeah.
like, I saw your channel and I was kind of poking fun at it, but I appreciate and respect what you're doing, following what's going on with the bankruptcy and trying to help other people make sure that they get what they can from that settlement. And I think that's a great thing. And also, I don't have any personal dislike for Cas or Bennett, really. Yeah, I have been referring to him as Cas Pansy just as a little kind of jab, because he's been, he blocked me and he's been saying all kinds of stuff. And I mean, he obviously does not have the type of temperament where he can handle criticism very well. And he kind of spiraled downward, and we all just watched in disbelief because we really didn't think his reaction warranted what we did, which was just ask him some basic questions, So I'm sorry about that. The truth of the matter is that I like these guys. I would love to hang out with them and have a beer with them. And I don't hold any ill will towards them. But if they're going to attack me, I'm going to fight back and I'll counterattack with them. I mean, that's kind of the nature of crypto Twitter and the social media thing. If somebody's on your ass, you gotta respond,
Well, that's fair. It just, from my perspective, like, I just hate this idea of what I consider valuable voices, like, getting drowned out. Because like, one of his responses was like he's leaning towards not doing the podcast. At least, I don't know if he's where his head is at, but like, I saw a tweet where he was kind of just reacting to that, and I think he blocked everybody because he didn't want to, like, upset more people. But that's just him reacting, like, from an honest place, even though he was using foul language. So, like, I just don't like to see good people kind of get hurt, and like him to be judged by a moment where he's reacting to what he feels like is an attack on his character. So that was kind of what prompted me to get involved. And Twitter is a terrible place sometimes when you're under fire, because there's only one of you and there can be many other people that have opinions on you. So it's not always a fun place to be.
I agree, but I think it's important to note the distinction between critiquing somebody's work and attacking somebody personally, right? And I think that may be a disconnect that Cas has not fully understood, right? We can critique a statement that he puts out, and it's not necessarily a personal indictment of him. If he throws shade, say, at another publishing company, and somebody throws shade back at him, showing that it's kind of ironic that he says that, that is a critique of his statement. It's not a personal attack trying to destroy him. And he is a critic. They call themselves critics, right? They should be a little bit more receptive to the fact that as they become more influential, there's going to be people that are going to disagree with them. And his reaction to that just seemed way over the top, calling people cunts and pieces of shit and fuckface. And I mean, he could disagree, but he's the one that really kind of took it personally. And I want you to know that we didn't really drop down to that level, even though we could, because it seems pretty obvious Cas can be very easily provoked and trolled. He reached out to, some people he thought were behind the scenes at the subreddit that I'm a moderator for, trying to get me fired, right? That's really, I mean, I never did anything like that. I didn't call up Protos and say, hey, you should get rid of this guy, So there's definitely a different set of things going on here, I think. And again, if they'd have talked with me, we could have had a nice, friendly little conversation and said, okay, I see where you are. I was misunderstood. I didn't realize you guys, thought blockchain had potential and you didn't want to cover any kind of article that suggests otherwise.
It seems like the conclusions, though, were kind of reached prior to the overtures for conversation.
No, we reached out to them before any of this came out, and they just didn't want to talk about it. So all of this could have been avoided if they'd have established a dialogue, and they didn't. So they, Bennett responded to us only after the story came out, and I respect Bennett because we were in his Discord for quite a long time before we got kicked out. I assume Cas was the one that kicked us out. Bennett.
It was actually Bennett. From
Really?
what I can tell.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, he allowed us to engage the community. Of course, I've been a member of that subreddit for more than a year, for a long time. But it's like I put this documentary out. It's critical of blockchain. They're crypto critics. Why not cover it? Again, there's no material interest for me. I just think it's an important piece of work. If you think it sucks, tell me it sucks. And, but don't ignore me. A lot of people really like that documentary. So that's one of the reasons why I was like, hey, what's up?
That's fair.
And I still don't have an answer to that.
Yeah. I mean, you're still also not entitled to somebody's time. And it could have
Totally.
just come across as if they felt like, okay, you're just trying to use our audience we built up to promote your own thing. Right. So that happens a lot.
I guess, but I'm really not in this for the money. I'm semi-retired now, and that's one of the reasons why I got so much time to engage in all of this crazy stuff.
That's I guess a dangerous place to run across you if you have that much time.
Yes, exactly. But I just want to kind of look. I'm a software engineer. I don't like people spreading lies about tech that I in my field, right? And there's a bunch of claims that people are making about blockchain, about how it can do all of these certain things that are not true. And in my documentary, I go into the claim that blockchain is a good vehicle to verify the authenticity of things. And I explain precisely why. I explain what the Oracle problem is and how blockchain doesn't solve that. And it's just an educational thing. And I think anybody who really is putting anything of value into the crypto market, at least you need to see this and understand it. If you reject it, you reject it. That's fine. But
can I ask you one question?
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember anything about blockchain you found yourself wrong on?
Well, I mean, I was always learning about it, so I didn't always know as much as I know now. But it's not about right or wrong. It's just about a process of continuing to learn more and more. But I mean, we're 15 years into this, so you need to understand this documentary wasn't me going, I'm gonna shit on crypto people. I don't like these people. I'm upset I didn't make as much money. It's not like that. It was just, in fact, the whole reason why I became a moderator of Buttcoin was because I was an activist. I was in there debating people, and they saw how active I was and how passionate I was, and they invited me to become involved. And I'm an engineer, so I helped them set up their auto moderator to get control of the system. And I really they appreciate what I've done, but I must say it's not just me. There's a whole team of people that make that community run. And it's a tiny little community, but we like what we've cultivated there. It's a cynical, kind of tongue-in-cheek, fun little community. And every time Bitcoin goes up, they all kind of brigade our community and attack us, and we have to get a little more aggressive. But normally it's a fun little scene where we talk about all things about what's going on. And, a lot of crypto people rely on that as kind of like an alternate viewpoint. And I'm learning, but I can't deny the fact that we're 15 years into this, and I still can't get an answer to the basic question of name one specific thing blockchain is uniquely good at that is not criminal than what we already have. And to me, if you're going to sell this to somebody, that's a basic question you should be able to answer. So I am a little bit arrogant about that, but it's only because I've grown so tired of asking the question and getting crappy ansers, But I'm willing to be proven wrong.
Well, I thought you'd conceded that I had established at least a small use case earlier, but I guess we're retracing on that one.
Well, your use case is an abstraction, of like, again, this notion that crypto eliminates middlemen, I think is not true. I think the miners and the blockchain operators are middlemen. People say, for example, Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer money system, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes, and I saw that you disagreed with that.
So peer-to-peer means that the two peers are directly interacting with each other without any middlemen, right? Like BitTorrent.
At a network level, yeah.
At BitTorrent, when you peer-to-peer, you're sending your data back and forth to that individual peer. That's not the way Bitcoin works. When the two peers that are sending Bitcoin to each other never, ever talk to each other. Peer 1 talks to the blockchain managers. Peer 2 talks to the blockchain managers. So the notion that Bitcoin is even a P2P network is an illusion. Without that middlemen, the network of the miners and the node operators maintaining the database, there would be nothing, right? So
I think this is where you go wrong, because you're focused on the technical implementation, when the reality is, because you don't possess Bitcoin in a physical sense, you control the keys that allow you to send it somewhere, right? You send the UTXO to other addresses.
Right. But who owns what is strictly a function of what the central database says. And that central database exists because of a certain critical mass of nodes that keep it running. So you own Bitcoin, somebody else owns Bitcoin. If those nodes cease to operate the network, your Bitcoin disappears. So through no fault of you or your other peer, you can lose all of your crypto if those intermediaries running the network decide for one reason or another it's no longer profitable or it's illegal in this country or whatever to stop operating the blockchain. It disappears. And that's
true. Yeah.
That's a middleman in every practical sense of the word. And this is where the whole proof of work concept, the fact that it uses so much electricity just to exist, I find troublesome. If you own a whole bunch of Bitcoin, Michael Saylor owns a bunch of Bitcoin, those miners have to be incentivized to continue to operate. If they're no longer incentivized, nobody owns any Bitcoin. And those aren't the peers. Those are the people in the middle.
Well, good thing I run a node. It tells me that I have some Bitcoin.
There you go.
Yeah, but I think in terms of how it's peer-to-peer, right? So we've established that on a network level it's not. But the concept of, if I'm sending Bitcoin to my friend, I know his address and I can effectuate a network transaction, send to the mempool by signing this transaction. Mm-hmm. And if it gets picked up, the effect will be that he has received this Bitcoin that he can do with what he pleases.
Right.
So it is, in effect, a peer-to-peer transaction in terms of the use case. But yeah, at the network level, it's not. And I think the context switching between
peer-to-peer implies that you don't need middlemen for the thing to go through, and you do need the middlemen. So you can define a narrow. You can define
you're constructing the network as like a separate actor, right. Whereas I'm not defining it that way. It's the edifice of what is necessary to maintain the network.
I understand. There's another crypto argument that relies on the same fallacy, which is that Bitcoin is permissionless, right? In order to be able to transact in Bitcoin, you need nobody's permission. But that assumes that access to the internet and all of the resources that come with that are just available to you unfettered forever. And I think that's a foolish thing to take for granted, right? I don't need anybody's permission to send Bitcoin to somebody else, but that's not true. You need to be able to have internet access. You need to be able to have access to all of the network stuff that Bitcoin depends on, and that is by permission. There's entities that give you the privilege of being able to get onto their network. Now, you may dismiss that by just assuming that's always available to you, but I don't think that's fair to take that for granted.
Yeah, I mean, you're right in the sense that it's dependent upon the internet. It's without that, it's not going to work particularly well.
Mm-hmm. The internet is run by central authorities. Without the central authorities and their support, Bitcoin could not exist. And so by Bitcoin claiming it's decentralized, it's only decentralized on one level. On another level, it's dependent upon central entities.
Yeah, we're all dependent upon them. So I think without the internet, we'd all be in a lot of trouble.
Agreed. So you can see that it's like an onion, on one, you can make a claim on one level, but as soon as you peel back another layer, that claim doesn't necessarily hold true. And that's all I'm doing really is looking at the whole onion and not just one layer.
Yep. Yeah, I think it's a fascinating subject matter, but I think I hope that you do appreciate that people sincerely appreciate aspects about the technology and if you see value in something, that is what comports the value to it, right? It's a matter of how, like, what is the attitude of the people that are holding these assets? If they're all,
Okay.
you know,
Let's talk about that.
if they're all cartoonishly
Let's talk about the
looking to
attitude.
just, yeah,
People's motivations, because this comes back into the empathy question you asked me, right?
yeah. I think you can see ample evidence of people that are just looking to strike it rich, and
Ample is right. Yeah, I'd agree with you there.
but there's also, like, it creates the tribal attitude that I'm sure your subreddit gets a lot of. It's probably like catnip for it, where there's people that are, they're parting ways with fiat currency to buy into whatever token, and they're looking for it to appreciate, and then they're going to cash out. And
right.
I think that dynamic does create the kind of predatory.
And I think that represents the majority of crypto holders. Now, let's for the sake of argument, let's assume there's two basic camps. You have your people that are only into crypto just to get rich, and then you have other people that want to make the world a better place. I'm not going to argue about the sincerity of their claims, right? But let's just assume for the sake of argument, there are people out there that really do want to create a monetary system that is a little bit better in some way or another, right? If that is the case, if they really do care about making the world a better place and the application of how to get from point A to point B, they should be receptive to criticisms, and they should be receptive to new information that becomes available if their ideas don't prove to work. This is where we kind of conflict with those people that are in it for the tech, that claim they really want to, do something against inflation. They say Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation, right? So when evidence is presented that Bitcoin isn't a hedge against inflation, or that scarcity is not a guaranteed indicator of increased value, there's lots of evidence of that, and they dismiss it, then it's hard to believe that they really were sincere when they said they were into this for a better place. When there's evidence that contradicts their claims, we run into this all the time. People claim, it'll revolutionize this industry. And then we say, well, here's some evidence that it doesn't. Oh, you're just a hater. So then the discourse just stops. That's kind of where there's a disconnect between us and some of these people.
Yeah. Well, I think your standard of evidence is lower for your own assertions than for ones that I put out, right? Because you're saying that
you give me an example. Give me an example of where your evidence is better than my evidence.
Well, I'm saying you're taking for granted here that it's not a hedge against inflation, and
that's based on evidence. There's lots of evidence out there. You could look at the price of Bitcoin, and you can see it ebbs and flows with the normal markets. It's not like when things are bad in the traditional market, Bitcoin goes up. And let's face it, the whole idea of what motivates the price of Bitcoin is a whole nother can of worms to open, right? The whole concept of Tether and all these stable coins and these billions of dollars that are being printed out of nothing that nobody knows where they came from. It's funny that, if you want to talk about correlations, there's more of a correlation between Bitcoin going up and Tether printing billions of USDT than there is anything going on in the traditional economy.
Tether is a problem. I mean, I think we could go down this route for a bit, because I do agree that they both pose a threat to the crypto markets, and I mean, I think we can broadly agree they're not trustworthy. But in terms of their relation to Celsius, it's also quite a close one. So they were a Series A investor, Series B investor. They extended $1.8 billion in loans to Celsius. The last were two separate loans. The last one was eventually liquidated. So it was effectively approximately a $900 million loan denominated in USDT, secured by 35,000 Bitcoin, to the best of my knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that poses a big problem, because
and that's just one company, and there's no reason to believe that Tethers doesn't have their tendrils into every other company in the crypto sphere.
Well, just in terms of the effect, right? So they take these Bitcoin from Celsius depositors, and it's securing this loan. So the Tethers, that's like the issuance mechanism of the tethers. And then in terms of the liquidation, effectively the Bitcoin just becomes its tether, and the tethers presumably are still in circulation. And that does create an inflationary effect in terms of to the extent that tethers are dollars. And like they've effectively got off scot-free from the deal as well. So, and then I think Zeke Fox, who I saw you interviewed, he came up with, I think, an article pointing out all the abuses that Tether was able to pull off through Deltec by effectively letting Alameda trade against FTX customers.
And this is just the stuff we know, because on the rare occasion where we get to peer underneath the hood of some of these operations, you can imagine the stuff we don't know, which is why I can't imagine why anybody would. I mean, let's go all the way back to when Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, sued Tether way back before they were that big of a deal in the big picture. And back then they were assuring everybody they were one-to-one backed with fiat. If it weren't for her office going after them and getting some information and discovery, they'd still be spewing that lie, and so there's no reason to believe they have changed their position. There's one, like I said, all they have to do is submit to an independent audit. Bing, such a simple thing to do. Now I think everybody in the crypto industry knows they're not fully backed, but they just don't want to admit it. And I think everybody in the crypto industry kind of speculates that if they are backed, what they're backed from is probably not the most nicest entities in the world. Could be Mexican drug cartels, could be the Russians, could be various sanctioned entities, could be weird Chinese stuff going on.
Well, it's also to the extent that they have Bitcoin backing tethers.
Yeah, that should be disturbing. Absolutely.
Yep, because they could theoretically have enough assets to back their liabilities, but then in a market downturn, all of a sudden those assets aren't worth quite as much. So then they have a shortfall, and that's a problem. And the redemption mechanism seems to be very suspicious, because it seems like people aren't really
the redemption mechanism is hilarious. You have to have 100,000 minimum to redeem from them, and then if you look at their terms of service, which I have, it's crazy. They basically reserve the right to refuse to redeem anybody's tether at any time. And the fact that nobody in the industry that's holding any significant amount of tether is not upset about this is another indicator of, I argue, are there really any innocent victims in crypto at this point? And I think it's a hard argument to make that there are, when there's so many red flags that people ignore. And but I would say the same thing about Circle. I would say the same thing about any other stable coin. This is not a regulated industry. Nobody knows how much liquidity any of these companies have. They don't know where the liquidity is and where it's going or where it came from. So the notion of a market cap or a price of Bitcoin, we have no idea how much trading activity could make that thing plummet. We just don't know. And that should be disturbing to everybody.
Yeah, well, I think the markets are best judged by the lows versus the highs, because that's when you get a true sense of how deep the rot would be. But yeah, it's. I mean, I think when it comes to Circle, my recollection is that they have a reliable account of how much they have backing USDC.
I mean, they're not as crazy as Bitfinex and Tether for sure.
Yeah, but it's disappointing.
But I don't think they've been independent audited either. I don't think the source of their funds have been fully audited as well. They're doing the attestation thing too.
Yeah.
And
well,
again, this is not me hating on crypto. I'm asking the kind of questions that I think anybody who holds crypto should be asking.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I've never touched something.
Why
like
would somebody who
USDT
calls themselves the crypto critics say, I believe Tether is fully backed? And they said that twice in their thing. I would love to just have a conversation with them. This is the thing we keep pushing back against is, who is this other co-founder of Protos? Where are they getting their money from? Could it be somebody associated with Tether? We don't know. But that would certainly make a lot of sense given their weird flip-flopping around about how solvent Tether is. One minute they're talking about all the crazy stuff, and the next minute they're like, I believe it's backed. It just is confusing. I'll tell you this. If I didn't respect them and I didn't listen to them, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't care what they say. They should be flattered that we're bothered by them.
Yeah.
because we do recognize they have some influence in the industry, and we're wondering why they're telling people something that there's no evidence of.
My reading of what at least Cas was putting out in his clarification was that, because I think he was the one who thought that Tether at this point in time had sufficient assets to cover their tethers, was that they had effectively abused the system to acquire those assets. So if he was to guess, they would have enough. This is just my reading.
Yeah, but the whole point is nobody should be guessing. In this industry, there's an industry standard way of removing all the guesswork. And if somebody won't do that, won't submit to an audit, there's your answer. This is like black and white. So all of the speculating, to me, is creating noise and a distraction and playing into the hands of Tether. This is why if there's a closest thing that might come to a smear, it's that inference. It's that, look, you don't know for sure, but you're suggesting they are. That's carrying water for them. And that, I think, is sketchy. That's about the worst thing that I could say. Other than, hey, it's not nice to call people pieces of shit and cunts.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think I have another quote here from Sal that I think it was from minute 45 of episode 7. He said, "We need to make sure crypto dies. We need to drown it in a bathtub." Yeah. That's what we need to do.
Me and him argue a lot about how to solve the crypto scam problem. I'm not 100% speaking for him, but we argue about this quite a bit. You should, for every minute that we talk on a podcast, there's probably 5 minutes of me and him arguing. We definitely don't see eye to eye on everything, and I think that's what's good about our podcast. He would be totally happy with, governments just banning Bitcoin. I, on the other hand, just want governments to enforce existing fraud laws, and I think a lot of these crypto schemes will go away. He's a little bit more proactive. He kind of wants them to shut it all down, burn it all down. And I'm like, that's a nice sentiment, but we live in in the 21st century, we live in a very deregulatory society where governments, especially in the United States, have a hands-off approach. They'll give people not enough rope to hang themselves, but enough rope to hang themselves, all their friends, all their family. And Sal has a legit argument. They shouldn't be given enough rope to hang everybody in their neighborhood. And I think he's got a point, but I'm just a pragmatist. I'm like, I don't see that changing anytime soon. So we have different ideas on how to stop it.
Yeah. I mean, the notion of forbidding somebody from running a certain program on their computer, to me, seems
and
extreme.
I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. Well, it would be such an outrage in terms of a personal liberty standpoint. And even like the part that of Jackie's activism that I would agree with is if you have, say, Riot that is not doing sound mitigation and causing distress in the neighborhood. That's a very valid complaint. And I think to me, that would be a valid complaint, whether it was an AWS server farm or whether it's mining Bitcoin. You need to be respectful of your neighbors. In terms of the broader power consumption, I do think it's a bit more of an open discussion in terms of if you're managing a grid, there is something to be said about flattening the demand curve. So there can be...
I think that's an excuse, though. I think that's a bad argument.
It could be an excuse, but I think that is a valid... if you are managing a power company, it's easier to do if you have a flatter demand curve. Now, whether they're using that as an excuse to just put these deals through, that could be another, valid argument. But I do think it's a little bit more complicated on that aspect.
I mean,
but in terms of the noise pollution, though, I'm on board with it's not fair to have people listening to servers run when they're in their own homes. I'm not okay with that.
The noise pollution is just something new, but the bigger thing Jackie takes offense to is the fact that you've had a crypto mining company that's making more money by turning their mining machines off than they are operating them. So they're not even really a crypto mining company. They're just a company that's got some political connections that is brokering the people's electricity and selling it back to them for even more. And there's something immoral about that. That many of us kind of think, this company Riot should not be turning off their machines and then making a fortune by turning things off. regarding power, I'm not even going to get into the whole argument about whether Bitcoin encourages green energy, because I think that's bogus. But the idea that we need some kind of energy consumption to flatten the grid is a symptom of a bad grid design. If you designed power properly, you don't have a whole lot of wasted power. And so Bitcoin shouldn't exist to compensate for poor grid design and poor power generation design. You design, if you've got wind turbines and you've got hydroelectric stuff and you've got other gas powered plants, if the demand is down, you shut things off and you reduce wear and tear on stuff. You don't need to feed it to a Bitcoin mining operation. You shut it down. It reduces pollution. It makes the equipment more reliable. That's what you do instead of just, hey, let's bring a Bitcoin rig in here because we got some excess power. I think that's a poor argument.
Well, I mean, there's a pretty complex energy industry there, which I'm not going to claim to be an expert on, but part of the source of power comes from the green sources, which are less predictable, right? So you have solar that only generates power during the day, and you have wind, which comes and goes. So it does create a challenging dynamic for ERCOT to, try to keep things predictable when you combine that with demand curve that, also creates like its own sinusoidal wave. So like I think credibly see some value in having a demand provider that's willing to curtail demand when they need to provide it to other folks on the grid.
Yeah, that's fine, but making more money from turning your equipment off just seems crazy. And they're getting a cheaper deal on power than the citizens in the area, again, which seems kind of crazy. But, and so I respect the fact that these people take offense with that, Again, I don't know all of the complete details of it, but it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And I think other people should question it as well.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a little bit probably beyond the scope of where we want to go with this, because we've kind of talked at length about probably most of the subject matter that.
And let me say, I really do appreciate you hosting me, and you seem like you're a very articulate and smart guy. And I don't mean in any way to cast aspersions or to suggest that you're not a decent person and that you don't have empathy or anything like that. In fact, I think all of us really want the same things in the end. We just want a comfortable life. We want to be able to provide for ourselves. But many of us disagree on the best way to get from point A to point B. And all I want to do is have a discourse about that.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a good, good sentiment. And I think, broadly speaking, your documentary is looking to try to spread awareness of how things work. I do think that there can be room for disagreement in certain areas, although
I'm totally open to it too.
Yeah. But I think to me, it's always better to have constructive conversations versus the kind of low quality dialogue that can easily be found in crypto Twitter.
I 100% agree, which is why I still wish that Bennett and Cas would talk with us,
Yeah. Well, I think it's probably something that could be down the road, but my impression, if I try to put myself in their shoes, and it's not like I have, I only joined their Discord after this all popped off. So, my guess would be that they probably saw this as, because I saw this as an attack, so they probably would. And if there's a conversation in good faith about certain subject matter, then I think it's easier to have versus if their own audience is being leveraged to wage an attack on them. Then it becomes I wouldn't want to partake in that either. So
I understand.
Hopefully the fact that this conversation exists will at least lay out the details, and then maybe I think it'd be interesting to hear you guys talk. So and actually there's a great episode they just did with Molly White where they were talking about the Chris Dixon book and kind of pointing out how his visions for blockchain is not
Right.
actually practical. So I think you'd probably get a kick out of that one.
Yeah, but that's and I've listened to that. But there's an emperor in the room. There's an elephant there, a naked emperor elephant in the room that is largely not discussed. Which is, it's funny how there's so many scammers and projects that fail. How many hundreds of these have to collapse before at some point you go, maybe this is endemic to the entire industry. That just seems to be the point they don't want to acknowledge. And that's where we're different from them. And if they think we're wrong about that, then have a dialogue with us. But I think they know we're right. But the problem is they are employed by people who have a vested interest in not promoting that narrative. And that's the conflict. And I respect that. If I was being paid, by a certain company or an entity or an industry, it wouldn't serve me to bite the hand that feeds me. That's, if there's any aspersion we've made, it's like, okay, this explains some things. And if that's not the case, they're welcome to engage with us.
Yeah. I mean, they've already stated that Protos has never interfered in terms of them covering whatever they'd like to. And I believe them, but I think you might take issue.
Why won't they say who? Why won't they say who Protos' co-founder is? Why is that
I can't speak to that.
Unwilling to be answered?
Yeah, I can't speak to that, but
they spend their days investigating other companies and looking into who owns what and where the money goes. That's all they do. And when somebody asks a basic question, where does the money come from at Protos? How is Protos making money? Who funds it? And there's crickets. That's something that really does, that's like, okay, all right. That's a double standard. I can't ignore that.
Well, you haven't pointed out any issues with the articles other than that one water study, which
there's plenty of articles. If you listen to our latest podcast, Who Watches the Watchers, we go into a number of podcasts they've done where we start to discover little subtle signs that they'll only go so far in critiquing crypto and blockchain. And that's totally cool. I respect it.
Part of it though was Sal was lobbing questions at Bennett in a 6-person panel, right? Mm-hmm. And that's already if you're criticizing somebody based on what they're saying in live audio, when you're taking the extreme negative position, you're almost forcing the person, if they are still critical but not a complete, crypto must be flushed down the toilet.
That's not what the topic of that was, though. The topic of that podcast was game theory and Bitcoin, right? Game theory and Bitcoin. So Sal tuned in to want to see whether or not they were going to acknowledge that Bitcoin is a negative sum game. There is tremendous evidence that it is a negative sum game. And that was the naked emperor, the big, huge elephant in the room that not one of them would acknowledge. And that, I think that's kind of telling.
That comes down to if you believe that Bitcoin has no value, which is clearly a viewpoint that you and Sal share. So
it's not simply whether it has no value. It's whether or not it creates a positive value or a negative value. And just for Bitcoin to exist, it consumes tremendous amounts of resources. And that's negative. If you guys hold your Bitcoin and you never trade it, it still will require people operating that blockchain consuming things for that to exist. So it's not a zero-sum game. Just for your Bitcoin to exist, if nobody does anything with it, requires the expansion of energy. So that is a negative-sum game.
As does almost everything in this world, right? So if you give me a Beanie Baby,
I have that Beanie Baby. I don't have to spend electricity to make that Beanie Baby exist. It's not a zero-sum game. I get a Beanie Baby. That's it.
You need to make sure the moths don't get at it. So you need to buy a nice little snug place for it.
Okay. All right. Well, maybe that. Okay. So I just got to protect the Beanie Baby or it loses its integrity.
I mean, if you were to compare Bitcoin to, say, any fiat currency, there's substantial cost to maintain the currency. You have the printing press, you have coins, you have Federal Reserve, you have armed guards, you have people policing against counterfeit. There's substantial cost to any monetary system. The question is, is the benefit that people are deriving from it outweighing that? So I think there's this implicit assumption that Bitcoin is useless, therefore it's inherently a negative sum game. So somebody who doesn't share that, what I would call an extremist view, is not going to come to that conclusion. So to me, like, it's just somebody has a different viewpoint on that one issue, and I think it's a reasonable viewpoint.
I wouldn't say Bitcoin is useless. I would say Bitcoin doesn't seem to produce anything useful for society. There's a little bit of a difference there. It's not quite as, I mean, I recognize to certain people, they find use in it. So I can't tell you that your feelings are wrong, right? If you believe in it, you believe in it, right? But if you say it's the money of the future and it can do this, this, and this, in the real world, those are material claims that can be tested true or false. I can't invalidate your personal feelings about whether or not you give it value. That's where we come into at odds with each other.
Yep. I think it's important that people be free to, do what they like.
Yeah, and you're free to do that. I just wish some of these guys would stop making claims that are not true. Like because Bitcoin is deflationary, it's always going to increase in value. I think that's a false claim. This notion that as long as you keep holding, it's the value of Bitcoin is going to go up, up, and up. I think that's misleading and fraudulent to claim that.
Yeah, well,
now you can believe it, but that doesn't make it true.
That's true. Well, it's also like you could potentially have something fail without it being a scam as well. So I think there would be no, like, if somehow, let's say, I mean, for whatever reason, the network splinters and people abandon it, it will have resulted in some winners and losers, but it's not prima facie going to be a scam necessarily.
I don't think the technology is a scam, and this is something that me and Sal disagree on. He thinks Satoshi from the very beginning designed Bitcoin to be kind of like a scammy thing. I don't. I think the technology is benign. I think this design that Satoshi created, it's an interesting theoretical prototype for a decentralized token system that people can trade. I think it was kind of clever just from a theoretical standpoint, but practically it doesn't really work. It doesn't work on any kind of large scale. I believe, and I was around in the early days, and I remember reading some stuff where he kind of considered it to be more of a microtransaction system, a way for people to make tiny, tiny donations, dealing in trivial amounts of value. It never intended it for it to be an investment or anything like that, or for it to become super valuable. But Sal disagrees and points to some of Satoshi's writings where he did mention that it had the potential to increase in value because of its scarcity. So we disagree on that point. I think the technology itself is not a Ponzi, but once you start telling people buy and hodl and you'll get rich in the future, that begins to emulate a decentralized Ponzi scheme where the only way you can see a return is if people come in later and buy in. And then those people need more people. And it seems to work as long as there's enough liquidity and as long as there's enough greater fools coming in. But if that stops, the whole thing collapses and whoever is holding tokens ends up with nothing. And this is the thing. We don't know how much liquidity there is in the market. We do not know how much Tether really has in liquidity. We probably don't even know how much Coinbase has in liquidity. They're probably not even transparent, being a public company, about the nature of what's going on their exchange. We know Coinbase has been sanctioned in the past by the SEC for manipulating trades and stuff like that. So
yeah, well, I think that article that you cited for Coinbase, it would seem to be related to an employee doing wash trading on Litecoin, which a former employee of Coinbase just invented out of thin air. So it's kind of
I don't remember the details, but Coinbase has been sanctioned by the SEC. There's been a lot of stuff like that. And every time we look in these exchanges, you can say, oh, it was somebody at the exchange, but the bottom line is that there was market manipulation going on. And yeah, I think the general consensus is, and then maybe this is my cynicism, right, is that people don't care if there's manipulation as long as they think they can make a buck. And I guess that's one way to look at it. But I think this notion that it's still early might be a foolish thing to cling to. That's all I'm saying.
Well, that's true. I mean, if things fail, then it becomes late. But you never know when the end will arrive. I'm generally optimistic about, like, I guess what it can, having something that can disintermediate what I consider to be dishonest actors in the broader economy. Like, to me, that
So you find
is,
there is more nefarious people in traditional finance than in crypto?
in terms of enforcing imbalances in society, I think the effect is greater in these companies that operate under the auspices of law versus these small time scammers that will spin up their own coin and then dump it on their followers. Um, to me, that's a much greater ill, though obviously, I mean, because let's face it, if you're just falling for these pump and dumps, it's really hard to to save you. Um, but there are, I think, more credible projects that are trying to do something that are impressive. And I don't think it makes sense to go through a laundry list of them, but there's
And
there's
that
going to
laundry
be,
list of credible projects will change next month. You won't mention any of the same companies. This is one of the
well,
issues that we
to me,
have.
I mean, to me, like the projects that I try to limit myself to for the most part are Bitcoin and then some of the layer one proof of stake protocols. And proof of stake to me is appealing in terms of the better efficiency of just running a network. Um, and I think it's the idea of being able to. I mean, these proof of stake networks all support varieties of smart contracts. To me, it's just like a fascinating way of being able to operate, a decentralized application. The trouble is, you have the surface area for attack that you don't have in a privately run application. You're not
Mm-hmm.
hiding behind a firewall. There's any kind of little oversight somebody can exploit, and
Yeah.
that's a definite problem. So for me, like, if these projects fail, it's sad if it's to the extent that people are hurt. But I think it's kind of, there are noble efforts being undertaken, and it's overshadowed by all the kind of clown shows going on. Um,
These noble efforts, they're smart contracts and bridges and stuff like that. But again, you pick one noble effort and start to drill down, and maybe it doesn't seem as noble as you think. And this is one of the things that we run into when we're arguing with people in our community is they'll throw 15 different companies at us and gish gallop all over us. Brandolini's principle, right? It takes an order of magnitude more time to debunk bullshit than it does to spread it. That's what we end up getting mired in. That's why I ask people, look, if you think there's some legitimate projects, give me one good example and let's talk about it. Like people will throw ENS, Ethereum name system, and we can drill down into that, and it's just a parasite on top of the existing DNS. So it's another layer of abstraction. Every individual project, once we talk about, we can dive into it, and hey, I recognize that people are trying to create some value there, but are they creating something that is truly competitive in the open market? That remains to be seen. And yet they're trying to convince the open market that this is someplace everybody wants to run to. And I don't see that.
yeah, I mean, I think an application like Uniswap I find pretty innovative, especially version 3, where um, it's the ability to kind of customize if you're going to provide liquidity to a liquidity pool. Like, I think it's
But isn't Uniswap also a great vehicle for enabling so many scams? It allows anybody to create a token out of thin air, dump it on their network, and defraud people.
well, yeah. I think the thing to keep in mind if you are supplying liquidity to a liquidity pool is if anything goes wrong, you're going to be holding the side of the pair that's worthless. So you need to believe in both assets if you're going to mess around with that stuff. But I think the aspect that I like about it is that you've put forward, and notwithstanding MEV attacks, but you have this application that is open for anybody to use, and you're going to get the same execution as anybody else. Versus if you're dealing with these private trading platforms, the best customers are going to get access to preferred execution, and it's very opaque. If you do a market order, you're getting picked off at a disgusting price. Like there's things that.
But everybody knows, if you don't want to do that, put a limit order in.
Sure, but it's the attitude where they can
there's
take
a price.
advantage of
There's
their
a price
customers.
for all these free trading things. You're succumbing to the payment for order flow. That's kind of the way they make money. That's why they're not taking a percentage of your transactions.
Yeah. So I don't think
there's
a
trade-off.
blockchain,
No matter what system you use, right? Somebody's got to get paid, whether it's decentralized or not. And at least in my opinion, it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing I like about blockchain is it starts to push the issue on these matters, and it's not going to be like inherently blockchain or these blockchain networks, like they're imposing limitations. That's the inherent nature, and that's kind of, if you look at, like, say, Stephen Deal's tweets, it's always, well, you can do things better without blockchain. But it's like, well, sure, because blockchain is building in a limitation, so that's going to be almost a universal truth to,
well,
like,
blockchain
critiques.
is a tiny little ecosystem that still has yet to prove its value in the real world. And again, that may seem presumptuous and pompous for me to say, but we're 15 years into it. And again, Uniswap is a neat thing, but it doesn't represent something that anybody in the real world would go, oh my God, I've never seen that before. The ability to create your own token or transactional system on top of a system it's just like a game where you can create your own, you can put a design on a shield that you carry. It's cool within the context of that game, but unless you're into that game, nobody has any real desire for that functionality. That's kind of what I see a lot of these systems are. And people in the crypto industry are really deep into it. So they are like, why don't you see that, dude, I can make my own shield. Why don't you want to make your own shield? And I'm like, well, I don't have a character. It's not something I'm doing.
I guess the one appeal to that would be that, in theory, you could have that shield be used in a variety of places.
That's the pitch, right? Like NFTs. Yeah. You can have an NFT and it can be interoperable. It can move from different platforms. But the thing is, that flies in the face of this notion that blockchain is supposed to be permissionless, because in order for any digital abstraction that you create on the blockchain to work anywhere else, it's going to have permission of that system. You can't create an NFT of something in one game and have it work in the other game. The game designers will have to program and code that into it. And what's the incentive for them to do that? There's a reason why the gaming industry has rejected all of this, because it's just not practical.
Well, I think that there was pushback because it was feeding into this pay-to-play model that is exclusionary to a lot of the core audience, which tend to be younger people that don't have access to lots of money. So,
well, they monetized their fun. They were having fun. They didn't want to turn it into a grind like a regular job. They just wanted to, play their game. Why do they have to now get into a marketplace and start speculating on things? I understand they're wanting to spread that into all of these different industries, but if people don't want it, move on.
Yep.
And they have. That's the beauty of crypto, right? Next week it'll be something different. This week it's AI, everything AI stuff.
Yeah. Well, the two of the co-founders of Celsius have moved on to AI, so there's certainly some truth to that.
Well, look, I really do hope that everything works out for you guys. You get your money back. I would ask, maybe consider taking some of that money you get back and not putting it into the crypto market. Put it into something like an exchange traded fund, like a Standard & Poor's ETF. I know it's nowhere near as glamorous. It's not as exciting, but it is stable and it is reliable, and you get dividends, and you get that compound interest. And it's also in a market that's well regulated, that's less likely to go belly up. That'd be my,
Well, most of my wealth is in dollars, but I am optimistic about the crypto space as well, just in terms of, there's going to be a lot of, like, when you have the ability for anybody to spin up their own chain, it's a recipe for things to go wrong. Mm-hmm. And I think there's going to be a lot of these things that I think probably both of us will inveigh against.
Well,
we could probably share common ground, at least on those.
Absolutely, and I think we agree on much more than we disagree with. This notion that everybody wants to be your own bank, be your own bank. I don't want to be my own bank. I don't want to be my own dentist. I don't want to be my own chiropractor. I want experts. I don't want to be my own airline pilot. I want somebody who that's their main thing and they're really good at it and they're accountable. I'm still confused by this notion that a lot of crypto people think that everybody wants to completely self-custody. I'm perfectly content with keeping my money in a bank where there's entities that's their whole responsibility to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. It may not be as exciting. I might not make as much money in interest, but to me, if I really want to create equity, I like real estate. I love stuff that's been time tested for 10,000 years as being useful. Your mileage may vary.
That's true. Everybody needs to make their own informed decision. So I think we could probably start to wrap it up. But thanks for taking the time, and hopefully we've laid the groundwork for people to think, I guess, hopefully better of each other.
Yeah, and look, I no hard feelings against anybody, and I know I have a lot of people out there that don't like me because I am, I'm an enforcer on a crypto critical community, and a lot of people are mad at me because they can't go on there and post all their talking points. And I'm sorry, but it's just, that's our community. I got banned from Bitcoin. I got banned from our cryptocurrency. I'm not complaining about it. They run their community the way they want. If they don't want me in it, okay, so be it. That's the beauty of Reddit's decentralization, right? Everybody can create their own community. If you liked what I have to say, visit our website, ioradio.org. And I hope people will look at the documentary. And if you think it sucks, if you think there's something wrong with it, by all means, I'm receptive. You can reach out and tell me what you think is wrong. And Cameron, I really do appreciate you giving me this opportunity. And again, Bennett and Cas, no, I don't have any kind of real hard feelings against it. I'm sorry they think we wanted to ruin them. That's not really the case, Just we have some differences.
That might be more just my initial impression of what was going on.
Well, there's a couple of people that have taken up the thing for them, which I just think is unnecessary. But I can only do what I can do.
Yeah, I think particularly from Sal and Jackie, it kind of came across as an attack. So I think that's where. Certainly to me, that's the way it looked. And
well, they're very passionate about their stuff. If you attacked my area of expertise with the software engineering, I probably would be a little bit more aggressive than talking philosophically. But I would say try to understand where they're coming from. They are good people, and they're doing the right thing. They're just trying to help their community, and Jackie's not getting paid to do what she's doing. She spent thousands of her own money for this. And the same thing with Sal. We don't make any money. Our channel is not profitable, and we're not trying to suck influencers away from anybody else's channel. We really don't care about that. Let's face it, if I wanted to make money with YouTube videos, I wouldn't be using an esoteric topic like crypto criticism. I could make a lot more money if I was towing the crypto line. 6 million people in the Bitcoin subreddit. I'm just trying to help and educate. And I understand some people are going to disagree with me, and I'm sorry about that. But I will continue to try and engage.
Yeah. By the way, is this a pseudonym of yours, Adam Smith, or is that?
It's my name. You can refer to me as that anytime you want.
Just wanted to clarify that.
No relation to the Economist dude, though.
Yeah, I thought it might have been chosen for that reason. So no Scottish roots.
No, and it was a rude awakening when I started learning about some of the stuff he was writing.
Great.
Which I do not agree with.
Fair enough.
Well, Cameron, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks for joining, and until next time.
All right.